Now, with respect to the demonstrations last night, the murder of George Floyd at the hands of the police was a horrible tragedy, one of countless tragedies to befall people of color across the United States. Since this terrible pandemic and the loss that comes with it swept across the globe, people everywhere have gone through awful, terrible moments. The loss of life, connection, purpose, income, routine, it has all pushed many far beyond what we're used to dealing with. Even before this week's demonstrations, people were making their voices heard about the pandemic. Some marched or spoke up for or against one position or another, or made signs or used social media to send a message that they wanted to be heard. As we combat the pandemic, we remain in a real struggle with how to carry out the bedrock principles of democracy with the best medical guidance available to fight an infectious, contagious disease. By and large, the people of Massachusetts have made it work. We're balancing the fight against the virus with the fight for what we as individuals all believe in. But it's hard and it's not over. I want to thank everyone who marched and exercised their right to free speech safely last night. Tens of thousands of our neighbors, friends, and colleagues tried, when possible, to balance the new normal we live in with their right to free speech. I want to thank everyone who made their voices heard with the safety of those around you in mind. To the men and women of law enforcement, fire, EMS, the National Guard, and every first responder who was out on the streets last night, thank you. Once again, you answered the call, putting the safety of the city of Boston, its businesses, and its residents ahead of your own. And many of you came from communities all around. Thank you. To the criminals and cowards that tarnished that night's peaceful protest, I expect your day in court will come soon. The destruction of property, the looting, the criminal attempts to injure law enforcement are unacceptable. The people of Massachusetts cannot let these individuals succeed in their goal to sow chaos into the fabric of what is an important effort and movement. Racism and injustice comes in many shapes and sizes. People of color experience these painful moments on a daily basis, on personal levels and professional levels. Just ask Christian Cooper. And sadly, they're experienced through interactions with the very institutions that are built to protect and uphold justice, government in one form or another. They're all unacceptable, every instance of discrimination, every attempt to use race as a tool or a weapon, every offhand slander among community members or in a workplace. But injustice experienced at the hands of a public institution that's supposed to be rooting this out, that can often be the most despicable act of all. The Color of Law, a book about housing policy in America that was published 2 years ago, pointed out the profound and long-lasting impact decades of discriminatory federal housing policy has had on the housing wealth of white and black Americans. It all adds up, the slights and the injustices, big or small, day after day, month after month, year after year. The cumulative effect of these moments, whether they're caught on camera or not, they add up for the people who are involved. The cumulative impact is countless and terrible. It can rob somebody of hope, destroy a sense of personal safety, and over time, it can incite anger. It's a truly wretched combination, fear, anger, and hopelessness. Fear, anger, and hopelessness experienced alone is a dead end. But there are avenues that do lead to progress. Last night, I saw tens of thousands of people unite to continue the work to build a way forward for everyone who feels trapped at that dead end. By an order of magnitude, we can add up the number of people who want to build on progress and do well for one another dwarfs those who want to do the opposite. There are few things in public life more powerful than the united message of an overwhelming majority grounded in compassion. And that's what we'll take away from last night. How we move forward is up to us. I know that I speak for the Lieutenant Governor and myself and many public officials we've talked to in the past 48 hours. We've all asked a lot of you lately. We've asked you to sacrifice to help the elderly, the sick in your community. You've done it and been doing it every single day for a while now. We know you're strong, but now we ask you to choose to use your strength again. Use it to say something when it would be easier to be silent. Use it to be kind when it would be easier to be bitter. Use it to lift somebody up when it would be easier to just walk by. And use it to build a grand coalition of the willing instead of supporting those who would tear us all apart. It can work, and it has, on civil rights, disability rights, pay equity, healthcare reform, criminal justice reform, addiction, and many, many others. We owe it to one another and to those who come after us to find a path forward. The injustices that Black Americans experience every day and their devastating cumulative effect don't care about state boundaries. We all have an obligation to see and address these issues. We have an obligation to use our strength the right way to continue that march toward progress. We've been speaking with elected officials, public safety experts, members of the Black and Latino communities over the past several days. There are many bright ideas coming through these discussions, and we must find ways to enhance transparency and accountability in the law enforcement and criminal justice systems. Without it, bad actors will continue to smear those who do the right thing every day, and the very best among them will never get the gratitude that they deserve. There are no easy answers, but there is opportunity to make progress and improve. The public rightly expects its elected officials to be humble enough to admit their flaws and open enough to seek and find better answers. And it's up to those of us who serve to understand that and to make it happen. On a final note, I heard what the president said today about dominating and fighting. I know I should be surprised when I hear incendiary words like this from him, but I'm not. At so many times during these past several weeks, when the country needed compassion and leadership the most, it was simply nowhere to be found. Instead, we got bitterness, combativeness, and self-interest. That's not what we need in Boston. It's not what we need right now in Massachusetts. And it's definitely not what we need across this great country of ours either. Thank you. Questions?